Welcome everybody to the October 1st, 2024 meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call of members, please?
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Here.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Shauna Black.
Here.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
14 members present.
We have a quorum. Okay, presentation of proclamations, petitions, communications, and notices. There are no proclamations tonight. We will have two executive sessions items, and I will announce what they are later. We are now up to privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is the time when any member of the public can speak with us on any topic for up to 3 minutes. If anyone in the audience is interested in speaking, please go to the back of the room and find one of these blue cards, fill it out, bring it right up to us, and that's how you get to speak, and you are agreeing to certain rules, which I will now read. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. Okay, we have Zach Wynn.
Good evening. My name is Zach Wynn. I'd like to point your attention to the devastation following Hurricane Helene. There are currently countless dead and scant resources being made available to aid those suffering from the storm. Private helicopter pilots are being threatened with arrest for conducting rescue operations. There are large areas with virtually no communications, and infrastructure is devastated. I'm curious if there's anything Tompkins County can do to assist with recovery operations in the areas most affected by the storm. Be it law enforcement personnel, other first responders, machinery, or material aid, there must be something the county can offer to assist with this crisis. I request the county offer the opportunity to go assist with the crisis to a small number of county employees, perhaps 5 to 10, who are members of the Sheriff's Department, the Highway Department, Health Department, or any other relevant professionals employed by the county, and for their reasonable expenses to be covered, in addition to allowing for paid time off during their time working on the disaster response. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Okay, we are next up to municipal officials. Town of Enfield, town board member, come on up.
Good evening, Bob Lynch, councilperson, Town of Enfield. I thought I'd give you an update on some of the challenges that we're having in Enfield, and after that I have a question. The challenges are regarding the budget. And I know that you are wrestling with budgets meeting after meeting after meeting, and you're proposing, the administrators proposed, a 4.35% increase in the tax levy. We in Enfield are not quite so lucky for a lot of reasons, but our supervisor came to us on the 18th of September proposing a levy increase in her tentative budget of 8.85%. And that was a fairly lean budget. There weren't too many excesses there. It's just like things like, for example, the health consortiums, 14% increase in premiums, state retirement funds increases. It gets expensive. And when you're a community with not too much of a tax base and not too much of a cushion, you have a problem. Well, at that meeting on the 18th of September, we worked hard. In fact, I think we worked a little too long and too hard because we got a little cranky toward the end. But we adjusted the budget in a number of ways, and we got the proposed levy increase down to something around 5.2 to 5.4% increase. That's still more than Tompkins County's talking about here. But we did it at a price. And the price was, and I know this would be sensitive with some members of the legislature, is we tapped fund balance. We essentially robbed the piggy bank, and there's a question as to whether we should have done that. I won't get into the internal politics. I'm a little concerned about it. But we took $125,000 out of our unrestricted general fund balance. And that may seem insignificant to you, but our fund balance reductions would reduce the projected $583,000 general fund balance at the end of this year to $458,000 by the end of next year. And unreserved general fund balances would fall from $493,000 to $368,000. And that's a pretty big drop. And we're going to have another town board meeting in a little more than a week on the 9th of October. And we will probably decide our preliminary budget at that time and send it off to a public hearing 2 weeks later. But there are some tough decisions we have made. We also, another tough decision that I can't say that I personally agree with, we increased the salaries to our highway superintendent and highway staff a full 10%. And the supervisor had recommended 5%. We proposed, we juggled some numbers, and there was a little horse trading going on between us and the highway department. And we got it, it was proposed to be a 10% increase, and the majority of the board seemed to agree to that. There are no final votes taken, but we'll see what happens on the 9th of October when we next meet. That's the budget in general, but we have a second prong to our problem, and that's the fire budget. Because as you may know, we established a fire district to govern the fire services. And the problem is that proposed budget tax levy increase, or at least a spending increase, would go up by 28.28%. And that's because of one new fire truck that we bought last year, and for the first time in 2025, we will be starting to pay the principal and interest on the bonding for that. The principal will be $86,000, interest would be $39,880, grand total of $126,576 added to the budget. And that's what's responsible for that 28% increase. As you may know, fire district budgets don't get public votes from the public in a referendum. They do get votes by the town board, or I should say not by the town board, but by the Board of Fire Commissioners. And they will be meeting and having a public hearing on the 15th of October. So they will be deciding that, and probably we're going to have a hefty double-digit increase in the fire district budget this coming year. There are some other things that we as a town are working on. We have an SPCA contract we have to renegotiate, or rather recertify. There's a 3-year contract with the SPCA that expires this year. The SPCA essentially gave us a take it or leave it 2-year renewal, which we have to decide before year's end. I am well aware of the comments that were made at last evening's budget forum here in this legislative chamber regarding the SPCA, and we will take those concerns under consideration, because frankly our town is a little worried about the impoundment periods, and we want greater assurances that impounded animals will be offered for adoption and not euthanized. I won't go further than that, but we know there was discussion last night, so every legislator is aware of the concerns regarding SPCA administration right now. There's also further discussion and debate, and it will take place on the 9th, regarding tree pruning practices by our town highway superintendent. Some residents are a little concerned about that. And we may form a conservation advisory committee with advisory powers. That's under discussion. It isn't decided yet, and we may decide to do that or not do that, depending on the outcome of the discussions on the 9th. I told you I had a question, and the question is one that I expected maybe would be answered publicly by now because the deadline is passed, and that is, has Cayuga Medical Center gotten the state approvals for its crisis stabilization center? Does anybody know the answer to that?
We do have a resolution on the agenda tonight dealing with this topic, and either there or in the Community Recovery Fund committee report, we will discuss that.
Okay, I thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Lynch? Rich?
Robert, thanks for coming and speaking with us, and it's good to know other governmental entities are struggling with their budgets.
Misery loves company.
There it is. But I'm glad you got to a compromise, and it looks like you've moderated the original budget and addressed some of your community needs. And we're trying to do the same thing.
No, we're working on it.
Anything else? Ann?
Thanks for the report, Bob. Just wondering, curious, I guess, if the town of Enfield has a fund balance amount that you keep in reserve, like a fund balance policy?
We do have a fund balance policy, and it is that there should be a minimum fund balance in the general fund balance of $250,000. So our fund balance, as proposed, would satisfy the $250,000 according to our town bookkeeper. And the question is the fund balance policy adequate for a town our size? I know it seems like a small amount compared to Tompkins County, but we are a small town. Nonetheless, if crisis were to strike, how far would $250,000 go? And that may be a subject for further debate as we fine-tune our budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah?
To follow up on that, Bob, do you know offhand what the town's monthly expenses are?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what the town's monthly expenses are approximately?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so how many months does your $250,000 cover?
$250,000 is the yearly figure that we have, that we try to charge total.
No, I'm asking what your expenses are, not what your fund balance.
The fund balance?
Not what the fund balance reserve is. What are your town's monthly expenses?
Monthly for spending, totally?
Mm-hmm.
The total spending on the budget, the total spending on the budget for the 2025 year would be, if I can find it here, I know I've written it down. I think it's a total, you've got to remember, you've got to segregate out the general fund and the highway fund for the town. And
No, just what's your total budget and divide it by 12, and that should tell you what you're spending per month.
What we done with the money? I'm sorry.
I'm trying to address your question about the adequacy of your $250,000 reserve. Generally, what's recommended is enough to cover 3 months of your town's expenses.
Right.
So it's for you to, I guess, go back and pencil that up.
It's higher, certainly higher than the 25% figure that you have, of course. It's a lot higher, but again, we're dealing with a lower amount of money.
Right, I understand.
So it's kind of, you have to have more than 25% of, it's like, I think our budget is a little over $2 million. It's like 2.5 million. So it's still the 250,000, and again, so it's within the limit, but it's got to be. I think to a certain extent that $250,000 figure was calculated, I think back in 2019, and you know how things have gone up since then.
You might want to revisit it.
So I think I would rather have a percentage figure than a dollar figure, but that's the way the policy reads right now.
Any other questions for Bob? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I don't see any other municipal officials in the room. Okay, we are up to privilege of the floor for legislators. Any legislators want to speak? Deborah?
Thank you. So tonight we have a resolution on the agenda so that we can begin to consider how we might repurpose the customs facility at our airport without running afoul of our bonding obligations. And it occurred to me that creates an opportunity to provide some information to the public who came to our meeting last night. And several of them suggested that we address our budget problems by closing our airport. I just thought it would be good if people understood that we can't just close our airport. The main reason for that is that a lot of our airport improvements are paid for with federal grant money. 90 to 95% of the money that we use for those improvements comes from federal grants. And the FAA puts restrictions then on what we can and can't do with those improvements. We can't just let them deteriorate. We have to support them and keep them in good shape during their useful life, which in many cases is 20 years. We have some current projects that are brand new, and so the timeline for those is 20 years. We have to maintain those for 20 years. Even if we closed the airport tomorrow, we would still have to maintain them for 20 years, which would actually cost our taxpayers more because our airport wouldn't be operating and wouldn't be bringing in any revenue. So to those of you who think that the answer to all of this is closing the airport, the answer is that we can't do that. It's not that we keep our airport open because we want to facilitate the ability of wealthy people to fly around and pollute the atmosphere. It's because we have to keep those airport improvements in good shape. And as long as we have to do that, we might as well give our airport the opportunity to recover from the pandemic and become once again a self-sustaining enterprise unit. Thanks.
Anybody else? Randy?
Yes, this Cornell Crop Extension had its annual retreat at the Arnott Forest in early September, and it was a good event. It was well attended. All but one board member was able to make it, as well as most of the employees as well. And it was a lot of team building, and individuals came in and tried to get the people to focus on what it is they're trying to achieve at Cornell Crop Extension. And I think it was a benefit to everybody, and I see a better focus from Cornell Crop Extension as time moves along. But one of the exercises they did is they passed along this kind of 8-ball thing, and it asked questions, and you tossed around this circle, right? And it would land on people. And one of the ones that came up is, what would you like your superpower to be? And so everybody had to answer that one, which was quite interesting. But mine was that I wish I had the power to convince everybody I was right. And people like, well, I thought, wait, I thought that was interesting. But so I just wanted to share that. So.
I just don't get that.
Now we're going to raise your hands if you thought that would have been his or not. No, never mind.
Veronica?
How many of that's ours?
Thank you. I would teleport probably. I just wanted to lift up that our whole health department is recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. A press release went out earlier that I'm not going to read all of it, but the theme this year is Heal, Hold, and Center, Domestic violence affects individuals of all ages, genders, races, backgrounds, and socioeconomic status. This form of violence has long-term impacts on survivors, children, and families, and communities. And a couple of bits of data from our own community. The Tompkins County Continuum of Care reports that between October 2022 and September 2023, 40% of clients in the emergency shelter system self-reported they were survivors of domestic violence. And of those clients, 41% were fleeing a domestic violence situation within the past 90 days. The Advocacy Center, a separate local organization, provides domestic and sexual violence services in Tompkins County. In 2023, the Advocacy Center served 778 adult survivors of domestic violence and received 2,467 calls to their hotline. There's a lot more about resources if you are dealing with domestic violence in any way in your life, or if you would just like to participate as an ally to survivors. If you go to our county whole health webpage and look at the latest press release, there's a quite robust list of things, some of which are even fun. Thanks.
Anybody else? Mike Lane.
We live in dangerous times. As we're here tonight and we're talking about things like our budget and how much we should spend on roads and bridges or social service agencies or our jail or our public safety, all those are important, but there's a lot of other things going on. We heard one speaker tonight talk about the hurricane that came up and has done a lot of devastation to Georgia and western Tennessee, or rather North Carolina, excuse me. And it was very, if you've watched the news reports, it's been pretty bad. Those kind of things can happen here. We've had hurricanes before. We think of Hurricane Hazel. We think of Hurricane Agnes, both which did a lot of damage here when it came up. We don't think of that a lot. We just missed a couple of hurricanes that hit New York and Long Island pretty heavily here a few years ago. Hurricane Sandy, for one. The dangerous world. Today, the Iranians are sending missiles to Tel Aviv. And our ships are helping to try to shoot them down from the Mediterranean and other areas. And of course, Israel will retaliate, and it'll go back and forth. Israel had done some strategic bombings of leaders of Hezbollah. And whether we like it or not, we are in the mix over there. And so our soldiers, we've just added another, 40,000 over there somewhere. We don't know where. So while we go about our daily lives thinking about our budget and our tax levies, let's think about what's going on in some other parts of the country and some other parts of the world, and consider ourselves, for the time being, pretty lucky.
Any other legislator privilege of the floor? Okay. Thank you, everybody. The only item for the chair's report is to talk about the Special Downtown Facilities Committee, which was formed last year. And when we formed it, we put a time limit on it of 15 months, and that is coming due soon. So what I would like to do tonight is extend that committee, the existence of that committee for another 3 months. That's through January 31st, 2025. And that'll put us a little further into the process. We will know a little more about what's going on with that project. We will have a new county administrator who might have some input, and we may or may not have a new chair. So that's what I would like to do tonight. Unless there are any objections, consider that done. Great, thank you. Next up, report by County Administrator Lisa Holmes.
Thank you. I wanted to just state in for the record a couple of positive developments that have been brought forward impacting the 2025 budget. As we know, at this time of year, we can have variations in projections that can go in either direction, and I'm glad to say we have a couple of positive such announcements at this stage. And this is thanks to the diligence of our budget team. One item is that since we recently passed the union contracts, market adjustments, and associated salary increases, our team has done a very thorough job of analyzing all of the impacted titles and to compare the actuals to what was projected. And the variable that can play a role here is the amount that we receive for New York State eligible reimbursement. And we were almost right down to the penny for what we projected for 2024, but we did come under budget for what we projected for 2025 by about $450,000. So that those funds can be utilized as target funding in the 2025 budget process. Again, this is kind of coulda, woulda, shoulda. If we knew this a month ago, my recommended budget probably would have looked a lot different than it does now, but we want to make this known to you in the budget process and available for as you consider amendments. The second item really just occurred very recently. We detected a discrepancy in the debt service schedule where the debt service for the Green Facilities Phase 1 projects were essentially accounted for twice. And this was double-checked by both our budget team and finance team, and all are in agreement that this yields another $500,000 in target funding available for use in the 2025 budget. And again, this was that administrative discrepancy occurred and was detected in this current year. This has not been something that we have been over budgeting for year after year. We caught it before it happened. So, so this is now lies in the legislature's decision-making authority to determine the most appropriate use for these funds. And happy to take any questions on that, but it's good news for our budget deliberations.
Any questions for Lisa? Lee, do you have your hand up? Okay.
I won't go after the money, Lisa, or we'll be tackling that during the budget reviews, I'm sure. But just a curious question for you on with the adjustments and what has happened with the contracts. Where are you seeing the vacancies and retention rates? Has that and competitiveness as far as attracting people, have all of these steps begun to show some promise as far as the workforce?
Well, certainly we have, the changes have been implemented for longer term in road patrol and corrections, and those departments, definitely, we've seen those retention, recruitment and retention efforts much better than previous. Same with blue collar. We had pegged a lot of the salaries to some of the similar titles in surrounding towns and surrounding counties where we were losing staff for HEO and MEO in the highway department and so forth. So I know that has had an impact. The most recent changes in white collar management and confidential, we believe will have an impact as well, but it's been, a month's time, and I don't know that we can say for sure yet, but I expect that we'll see the same.
Follow-up, will that mean any change to the vacancy rates that have been projected in the 2025 budget?
I don't believe so. That's, I think we increased it from 2 to 5%, and I think that's still reasonable and a tad on the conservative side, but reasonable.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Lisa? Ann?
Thank you for finding that extra money for us.
The budget team.
Thanks to the budget team for doing that. And so 450,000 plus 500,000, I can't remember the exact figure, 536,000 or something like that is equal to 1%.
On the levy.
So don't quote me on the exact numbers, but something around that.
300 and something, I think, wasn't it?
It's 5.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
36.
536.
There's a 3 in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we were playing the lotto, it'd be close, but anyway, so I want to say it's almost 2%.
Correct.
But I know we'll get more figures when we go into the budget, and somebody will have all those spreadsheets for us. So thank you so much.
Mike Lane.
Yes, this is really good news. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the folks that have continued to work so hard on the budget right through tonight. I've always said that we have to hold our breath for the October surprise, which is normally bad news from the New York State. So it's kind of nice to have an October surprise that's good news from our own administrative staff and finance. So thank you very much for that. And just for those folks that are looking, how can we spend it already? We could also add it to fund balance.
No.
Deborah? Oh, sorry, Lisa, did you want to say something? Deborah?
You just got the stink eye from Mr. Chair there.
And 13 other people.
Yes.
I'm just curious, since we're talking about budget news, have we gotten our Code Blue allocation yet?
Not yet. No, we have not heard on that yet.
Any other questions or comments for Lisa? Did you have more?
I have one other update, and that is at everyone's seats tonight, you see a handout, your county government local resource guide. Dominic had these produced. They are a one-page handy resource guide that can be shared with constituents. On the front page, it shares a number of county programs that are available for residents. On the back page, a resident checklist with lots of opportunities for county services, registering to vote, checking for property tax exemptions, getting to know my elected legislators, getting pets vaccinated for rabies, learn about recycling, composting, reducing waste, et cetera. And there are more of these available if you'd find them helpful to share with constituents. They're available in the back. They're also available on the county's webpage under Services for Tompkins County Residents. And thank you to Dominic for preparing these.
Any other questions or comments for our county administrator? Ann?
So will these be mailed out, or are these something we're going to hand out?
They're available to hand out, and they're available on the webpage. Simultaneously, Dominic has prepared the one-page mailer card that is going to be going out, and I think that there's some parallel information on that.
Okay, this is great, because a lot of us go to our municipal meetings and other events, so be glad to hand these out.
Next up, County Attorney Maury Josephson.
Well, I wish I had $1 million I could report. But we're just continuously working to find pathways for the legislature and the rest of the county to get things done. Details privileged, but anytime you have questions, feel free. And I'm happy to answer any questions I can now, if there are any.
Questions or comments from Maury? Thank you. Next up, Lori Scarrett, Director of Finance.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight I have to share with you the August sales tax estimates from New York State. According to the state comptroller, sales tax for August went up 3.8% across the state. County and city collections for the rest of the state outside of New York City went up 3.5%. And 45 of the 57 counties experienced year-over-year increases. For Tompkins County, the estimate, and I want to remind you this is still an estimate, not actual numbers, the estimate for August for the entire county municipalities and the city went up 3.67%. The county share of that went up 3.68% at $3.7 million. The municipalities went up 3.04%, and the city of Ithaca is estimated to be up 4.43%. So just to keep you on track, we are trending slightly above the 2023 actuals at this point and slightly below budget. Happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments for Lori? Lee.
Given that we're slightly below budget now, so the gap is getting smaller than where we were 2 months ago, and
That's correct.
in no sense yet moving forward.
So our fourth quarter is always typically our best quarter, so hopefully that will still reign true, but I don't know.
Thank you. Thanks for the good news.
Ann.
Thanks for this, Lori. You said estimated. Is it always estimated? And I didn't know that?
Yes.
Or you're saying about the municipalities?
No, the monthly sales tax projections are an estimate from New York State. The quarterly ones that I present to you, they reconcile that monthly to the actual figures that were reported for that quarter. So the quarterly reports are
always
actual, but the monthly ones that I give you in between are estimates.
Estimates, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Lori? Rich.
On another topic, thanks again for your work on checking interest rates and making sure our money's working for us. That's a very nice email to get.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right. Thank you. Are there any resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda?
Okay. Thank you.
Shauna.
No, I'm going to pull two.
Right.
Sorry.
No problem. I was half
I
a
was
step
looking at
behind you.
Katrina. I feel like, that was my cue, but it wasn't. Sorry.
Fair enough. Then let us move to the consent agenda. Actually, before I do that, let me do the advisory appointments. We have 2 tonight from the Health and Human Services Committee to the Office for the Aging Advisory Committee. We have Carol Mallison, at-large member, and Lori Hultberg, at-large member. And then the resolutions on the consent agenda. Resolution A, authorizing a lease extension with the Federal Aviation Administration through September 30th, 2026 for the Navigational Aid Facility, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID 12741. Resolution B, resolution authorizing agreement with New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets for the provision of petroleum product quality program services, ID 12681. Resolution C.
Off.
Resolution C has been pulled. Resolution D from the Health and Human Services Committee. Resolution E, authorization to accept grants, execute contract to support socialization and skill building for clients of the Personalized Recovery Oriented Services PROS program, Whole Health, ID 12733. Resolution F.
If I could pull D and F, please.
Yes, D has been pulled and F has been double pulled, it looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're good. Resolution G, budget adjustment or transfer, Tompkins County Office for the Aging Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program budget increase, ID number 12677. And Resolution H, budget adjustment or transfer, Tompkins County Office for the Aging Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program personnel hours increase, ID 12676. Can somebody move the consent agenda? Veronica moves. Deborah seconds. Roll call vote, please.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Donna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes. 14 ayes, the motion carries. Mike?
We have a nice audience tonight. It looks like possibly students. Maybe they'd like to know what we just did with the consent agenda.
Please.
There are certain resolutions that we don't think are going to be controversial, and we put them on what's called the consent agenda. And the chair reads through them. And if someone would like to discuss a particular one, they ask for it to be off the consent agenda, and then it'll come up later in the meeting. And will be debated or discussed at that point. Once we are through all of them, then as a unit, the ones that are left on the consent agenda are voted, and someone moves them and seconds them, and then we had a roll call vote. We had a roll call vote tonight because one of our members, Amanda Champion, is on Zoom tonight, and she gets to vote as well. I just thought you might like to know what we do with the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mike. You're a good educator. You are. If there's no objections, there's a few resolutions I would like to move around a little bit so that staff and other interested people can go home early if they would like. So for the first one, I would like to do Resolution D from Health and Human Services Committee, the contract for withdrawal and stabilization services.
Sure. So I would like to move Resolution D, authorization to execute contract for withdrawal and stabilization services, Whole Health Department, ID 12744.
Is there a second? Veronica seconds. Discussion.
Yeah. So Frank is actually not able to join us until 6:45.
Oh.
But I'm happy to talk a little bit about it, and Lisa can also add some information too. So we did an RFP, and the provider that was selected was Cuga Health Partners. They are going to reside and offer services out of the old Alcohol and Drug Council facility located at Trimmer. The whole idea is that they're going to operate, they're going to manage, they're going to staff, and hopefully in a very short time period, they will have that building and those services up and running. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm very confident in saying that, and I'm very thankful that there's a local organization that stepped up to do this really, really important work that I believe will save lives over the years.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in right here because I also have not exactly a statement from Frank, but something that he gave me some information. I wrote it up. So I'll just read it, and hopefully it makes some sense. New York State Office of Mental Health and the New York State Office of Addiction and Supports have authorized Cayuga Medical Center to apply for an intensive crisis stabilization, ICS license that would allow them to operate and bill for a crisis stabilization center. CMC has 2 potential locations for ICS, the Trip Hammer Building and the mall. They are being asked to put a plan together for both to be provided to Tompkins County in case we get no answer or a denial from Oasis to use the Trip Hammer location. Either way, CMC should be able to provide us with a plan to use the $1.5 million for the Crisis Stabilization Center. I know it's slightly off topic, but it's, very, very closely related. I do have some more information if questions come up. Okay, who else? Deborah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. I know that it's not directly related to this resolution, but I'd like to understand then, in view of what's in this resolution, where we stand with the Community Recovery Fund grant. Are we on track to get it allocated and used and not having to send it back to the federal government?
The answer to that is yes, but it's not everything is finalized. So they've received, let me see if I can get this right here. New York State Office of Mental Health and Oasis, the other New York State organization, is permitting Cayuga Health Systems to apply through the Department of Health System for the duly licensed Intensive Crisis Stabilization Center program. And they expect that in the next, feedback from New York State Office of Mental Health this week or next week. We also have someone with us. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, Dot, and if you can't answer these, that's fine. But we have Dot Donnelly, Chief of Staff, Cayuga Health Systems. You can come up and take any microphone you want, and maybe you can help us understand this even a little better.
Hi, good evening. I'm a party crasher. Happy to answer questions to the best of my ability. Oh, that's right, thank you. I need to stretch anyway. I ran in CrossFit today. I'm not going to be able to walk tomorrow.
Rich.
I actually don't have a question, I have a comment, but.
Sure.
Okay, I had pulled this off the consent agenda because I thought it was important we note the moment. This has been such a long time coming. I think this is one of the most significant things this legislature will do this year, if not more than this year. It's worth mentioning the Alcohol and Drug Council, which, did not bring it to the finish line, and we're not at the finish line yet, but very unfortunately, they got hit by the pandemic. I know there were people there that worked tremendously hard for this vision. And it's just very sad that the organization got hit with a tsunami of financial problems and couldn't pursue it. And I'm grateful that Cayuga Health Systems is stepping up, and CARS, that we have strong community partners. This is a great example of a public-private partnership. And I'm very pleased also that New York State, after, I would say, decades, is recognizing the need to have their Department of Health and Addiction Services working together on dual diagnosis. This has been a missing element for us for a very, very long time. I'm so happy that we're getting to vote on this resolution. Sorry for talking too long, but I didn't want to let it just go by in consent. Thanks.
Randy.
Is this resolution on the table?
Resolution D is correct.
And so this $1.5 million has nothing to do with this?
Well, I wouldn't say nothing.
So I want to say that, so it appears that the state is going to provide $600,000 per year for a period of years. We don't know how long that's going to be. And then those funds will be used to operate the facility, but you don't know where that facility is going to be at. It may be at Trip Hammer, but it may be at the mall. Is that what we're?
That is correct. The state has to approve the Trip Hammer Mall location, and if they don't, we're going to use the mall as a backup, the Trip Hammer Road location.
Okay.
And then the reason as I understand it, these are related is because this project had to go through a series of steps, and one of those steps is Resolution D. Simultaneously to that are the state approvals going on. So that's why we're discussing all of this right now. It's all part of the same project.
Okay, so if I continue my question.
Please.
So the $600,000 the state is providing is sufficient to run that particular building, but the $1.5 million isn't it a different program? Or is it the exact same thing, but just bigger?
Dot, can you field this one at all?
I can do my best. They are separate programs. Intensive crisis stabilization is the mental health portion of it, and withdrawal and stabilization is all related to the addiction services. So what OASIS and OMH are allowing us to do is to have a dual licensure in the same building so that we can run the mental health crisis stabilization center on the first floor of that Trip Hammer building and the detox and alcohol and addiction stabilization on the second floor. There are a lot of intersections here going on. We are waiting to know if we are being awarded the RFP for the withdrawal and stabilization. Once we know that, we can then move forward on plan A or B, Trip Hammer building or the mall location. Either of those we're prepared to go with. Ideally, we'd like to be in the Trip Hammer building because it's a fantastic place to serve the clients.
Mike Sigler.
My question was for Dot. So it sounds like this is step one, and then step two would be the separate program, the mental health stabilization unit. How close do you think you guys are to that? I mean, is that a question you can even answer?
The Intensive Crisis Stabilization Center, we will have open by the end of December 26. We have to, and that's the long play. But that's the Intensive Crisis Stabilization Center. The withdrawal and stabilization is where where that RFP 600,000 is going to. We will be on a tight timeline to get that done. We'll be running to, as soon as you guys tell us we're going to be going. I can't tell you when it's going to be open, but we are going to do it as quickly as we possibly can.
I just finish up, Tim?
Yes, please.
Okay. Dot, I just wanted to tell you, I really do appreciate Cuyahoga Medical Center stepping in this. I bother Frank every time I see him about this, and I know when I see Marty, I bother him as well. And without the hospital having taken this role, I just don't foresee these two very needed things happening. So I'm glad it was pulled for the same reasons that Rich did. It's really remarkable that this is actually going forward after kind of that big false start at the beginning. So, I mean, really thank Marty and thank your whole team for pulling this together.
And thank you for your careful consideration of this. It's not to be taken lightly.
I have quite a few people on the list. Shauna, you're next.
So, Randy, to answer your question about the funding model, the $600,000 will more than likely help with operating costs. And then they'll receive money from OASIS and OMH for each independent program. There also is a billing mechanism that would allow them to bill per night that a person is in there. So they might receive like $75 per night from OASIS or OMH. And then they can also bill independent insurances as well for revenue. So I think there is, once they get these licensures, I think the billing model is, it works. And so I hope that it's smooth sailing from here on out.
And I believe that RFP is for 3 years?
Not sure.
That's my understanding.
Veronica.
I guess some of this has been answered, but I was mixed up earlier because remembering that the crisis stabilization facility plan was waiting for some state approvals, but is the withdrawal and stabilization services was not waiting for any, is that correct?
We're waiting to be awarded that RFP, and then we will get going.
And so meaning you're waiting for the vote we're about to take momentarily?
Exactly.
Okay, great. I'm set then.
Ann.
Thank you for doing this program. These programs, as others have said, it really means a lot, as you know, to us and to the residents of the county.
It touches so many of us, yes.
Yeah, I used to work at inpatient drug and alcohol rehab. It's a lot There's never enough services.
I also want to acknowledge that many ADC staff are still working within our addiction services now at CARS, so I'm really pleased about that, and they are tremendous, tremendous additions to our team.
That's great. Question, the licensure is, because you talked about the different locations, is the licensure tied to a certain location?
No.
No? What? I guess I'm not understanding.
The licensure was that so that we could operate both services, addiction and mental health, in the same building. That's what we needed to get them to approve, to allow us to operate in that building.
And you're still waiting for that approval?
They've given us the permission to do it, and we've submitted the Form 1A.
Okay.
And now
To
we are
finalize
waiting
it?
on OASIS for the prior authorization consultation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Greg.
Yeah, thank you. This is exciting. I guess the question would be from a staffing standpoint with, obviously, we've continued to hear shortages of staff in healthcare, and especially in these particular spaces. Could you talk a little bit more about plan or ability, resources behind, being able to recruit and retain for this type of facility?
Sure. I'm not an operator, so I'm not going to speak specifically, but I will say, first and foremost, there are regs that dictate what we need to do from a staffing perspective, and we will adhere to those. We have an opportunity with a future affiliation also coming our way, hopefully, where in all of what we're doing at Cayuga Health, we are looking at how do we optimize the people in our organization, and how do we bring them into flow of service to clients. And so I imagine that there will be some sharing of resources across our various organizations. In fact, that was part of the plan before ADC unfortunately had to close. We were, in fact, ready to go and provide some nursing. So we are already kind of aware of the challenge, and we had stepped up to it, and so we know what we're in for. We're fortunate to have the talent acquisition team that we do that will be very much making this a priority.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Randy, did you have your hand up again?
I did.
Yeah.
So on the withdrawal stabilization approval that you just received, and the funds will happen if we approve this, when would that unit open?
The withdrawal and stabilization? Yeah. I know that ASAP isn't an appropriate answer, but that's kind of what it is. We have to, get certain equipment in. We're not pulling any levers until we know if we have it. But there's some equipment that we've identified that needs to be in there. Certainly we have some medical staff, clinical staff that we would need to recruit and get in there. I can't tell you a timeline because I don't know it, but it's an ASAP thing, as safely and as soon as possible.
Yeah, we toured that facility a little over a year ago or so, and it's really a nice.
It's fantastic.
Nice facility.
We were on site recently, and it's waiting.
Right. Well, thank you for that. And the second question is related to the Community Recovery Fund. So when does that have to be spent by?
Needs to be committed by the end of 25 and
end of this year,
expended by 26.
End of 24, it needs to be committed.
Oh, sorry, end of 24 committed, spent by end of 26.
It's going to be spent by, okay. Thank you.
Deborah.
So I have a text message from a constituent who has asked me to ask you what the maximum length of time for detox housing would be. Do you know?
The maximum time would be, I would imagine, would be determined by the medical practitioners working with that particular client.
So there's no arbitrary time limit on this?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's usually a minimum of about 3 days for a medical detox, but no, we would keep them as long as they were needing that level of care and would either step up or step down, depending.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this resolution? Dot, thank you so much for providing all that info that I was not able to.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
legislators for letting us stray a little beyond what the actual resolution was, but I think that was important to do. So, are we ready for a vote?
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14 votes, that's unanimous. All right.
Take it away.
And again, if nobody minds, I would like to now jump to Resolution O from the Public Safety Committee, just to free up one of the staff that's waiting here. Rich, can you do Resolution O, please? Sorry to spring this on you.
I certainly can. 1 second, I'll get to the page. 39. This is Resolution O, resolution to change the hours of the assigned council grants and training coordinator from 35 to 40 hours per week, doc ID 12693, and I would move that.
Is there a second? Veronica seconds. Discussion. Okay, let's go ahead with the vote then.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14 ayes, the motion carries. And then, Rich, would you also do Resolution C, which also has to do with the same office? Keeping you
Absolutely.
jumping all over the agenda here?
And I would move the resolution in your red folders. This is resolution on acceptance of funding from Office of Indigent Legal Services to support the provision of web-based legal research for assigned counsel panel attorneys, doc ID 12766. And I would move, as I said, the version in your red packet.
Veronica seconds. Discussion. Rich?
And the change in the document is just recognizing that this funding goes over a 3-year period, and so it needed to just recognize the funding for this year, I believe. So that's the only change.
Any discussion? Deborah?
Do I understand correctly, this is revenue neutral?
This is receiving money from New York State.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Lance, did you want to say anything? No, you don't have to.
No, thanks, Dan. I think Rich covered it. It is it's a renewal of our Westlaw contract. It's revenue neutral. All the funds are in approved contracts, and as Rich said, it's money that'll be paid for by state funds.
Okay, any last discussion before we vote? Let's have a roll call.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14 ayes, the motion carries. Are there any other staff waiting for any other resolutions? I don't think so, but thought I'd check.
Roxanne might be here for the airport.
Yes.
Oh. Roxanne. Okay. Help me out. What resolution are we on?
That's J, I think. Oh,
I. Okay. Oh. I and J. Okay, very good. Lee, take us away, please, on I and J.
Aye. Just aye.
Just I.
Just I.
Just I.
Okay, Resolution I, Airport Customs Facility, ID number 12721. And as has been alluded to at different points tonight and in recent weeks, this would move forward the closing of the customs facility at the Tompkins Regional Airport. Roxanne is with us, the airport manager. If you have any questions specific for her, but essentially, I guess where the committee come down to it, or a majority of the committee, is that the facility has incurred operational costs in recent years of $273,000, 2023, and the revenue was just slightly over $15,000, which is precipitating this, and you needed me to move that and have a second before we discuss it. I move.
Thank you. Greg seconds. Lee, did you want to keep going, or was that?
I think I've captured it. There was not a unanimous vote out of committee, but so move.
Very good. Thank you. I have Randy.
Hello, Roxanne. What type of other operations could happen in that? Does that have to be approved by the state, or is it just that it has to be used for something?
So there's some opportunities that are coming together from our strategic and business plan that we're working on, that we're coming close to finalizing, hopefully within the next few weeks. So there are some opportunities that are going to be looked at. We did have a meeting with the state, and we have, continue to keep them in the loop with the DOT as far as the grant funding. We have to just make sure that it's something that, is airport related, that is something, for public use, or that can be accessed by the public, or benefit the public in the community. Same with our bonding. I've been working with, financing with the bonding company, because part of the money was bonded, and basically the same regulations.
Yeah, Randy, keep going.
This is a budget question. So if we pass this, then does that mean that we're going to have $250,000 less in expenses in 2025? And if so, do we budget for that?
I can possibly answer that. I mean, I don't know. We have anticipated taking the money out of our very dwindling fund balance, or trying to come up with additional funds. So this is a separate budgeting unit than our operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna.
So I was part of the conversation today with Assemblywoman Kellis and Senator Webb, and it was a very good conversation in terms of asking questions. Department of Transportation was also part of the call, and we asked them questions about uses for the building, as well as bonding information. One thing that we also talked about, I did ask the question about support from our legislators on the state level to raise our hotel tax. They are definitely on board for supporting that, so I hope that we can carry that forward so that we could use that money to offer support for our airport too.
Mike Lane.
Yeah, I voted against this in committee, and I'm going to vote against it tonight. I don't know exactly why the enterprise of our airport is under attack in the last couple of years, simply because it's suffered under pandemic. If you take our other enterprise unit, the materials management and recycling, when the cost of recycling went through the roof and the markets were no longer there for the recycling commodities, we didn't decide to stop doing recycling, although a lot of communities around did that and just took them to the landfill. No, we decided to continue and to raise the solid waste fee. It's been over $1 million since increase since 2021. And we did that, and I'm glad we did that, because recycling is pretty important. But what I'm trying to say to you is sometimes our best efforts are slowed down by such things as the pandemic, through no fault of the enterprise, in this case the airport. We should try to support the airport. We're one of the very few airports out there that for many, many, many years required no local tax money. They were able to run it completely with the passenger facility charges and the grants that became available. I think that was pretty commendable. And for us to now say, oh, let's just do away with the customs facility, even though we had the plea from our fixed-based operator to continue the customs facility, and to hear people come to us and speak recently about, oh, this is just for the rich people, the airport. It's not. We've had an airport here since very, very early in aviation history, and it has done good. And it's done good, yes, for certainly our global university, Cornell University, and it helps them. There's no question. And they help us with the airport from some time to time, and have helped us get more flights and other things through their guarantees. I don't think it's beyond the realm of reasonable expectation to continue to support the Customs House. And I know that I'm in the minority here, maybe the minority of one, but we shouldn't not have this opportunity in the airport, because the airport's going to grow, and the number of flights is going to grow, and the passenger usage is going to grow. Thank you.
Greg.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for some of those comments, Mike. As most people know, I'm a large proponent of our airport. There's nothing, personally, I really probably enjoy more than that feeling of takeoff when you're on a plane, because it means you're going somewhere, right? You're either going home or you're going somewhere else. I think that the airport serves as an economic engine, a tourism engine. Our industries in Tompkins County are eds, meds, and tourism, as some of the big three. And I think what this airport does to support those industries is key and critical. So I'm not in favor of massive, cuts or changes to the airport operation as a whole, but I do support the resolution to stop the operations of the customs facility. I think we have to use data-informed decision-making to look at this, and we just don't have the data that supports keeping this open for less than 10 flights or so far this year, right, Roxanne? 6 maybe is the number?
It's 6 through May, but we've had 26 through the end of September.
26 through okay, so a couple dozen, which is great, but there's other ways for folks to solve the need to use that. It's not just for wealthy private jet traffic. There's also some commercial parts, materials traffic that over the years has gone through the last couple of years has gone through the customs facility, and so I just think it's we're not in a position to keep throwing good money after bad, and it doesn't have as significant of an impact in our community as I think many hoped it would have had. And I think it's a mature decision for us to recognize when it's time to cut the cord and move in a different direction. With that being said, I think that the airport team and their consultants and interested parties in the community are working diligently to try to find a solution for that will have a much more significant community benefit. And I look forward to those further conversations. But I do support closing the customs facility because I don't want the drag that the customs facility that the customs facility creates to continue to put a negative mark on the great work that I think that our airport does for our community. So that's where I'll leave it tonight.
Veronica.
It's going back to Mike's first, I don't know if you phrased it as a question, but comparing kind of bailing out the solid waste enterprise fund and bailing out the airport enterprise fund. I don't have an answer to why one and not the other, but I would surmise that a couple of reasons are that everyone recycles, but not everyone flies, and also that recycling has varying levels of success, but is generally better for the planet and potentially avoiding our slide into the heat death of the earth. And air travel is generally bad for the planet. I'm not saying no one should do it. I fly plenty, but there are different things. I don't hear from my constituents a lot of desire for international flights out of the Ithaca airport. I hear a lot of desire for bus travel. So I want, like, could the customs facility turn into a inner city bus station? I cannot remember physically what the customs facility is like. I don't know if that makes any sense. I would put forth that I think it is airport related in that, I mean, I get to and from the airport by bus and that sometimes, and that's nice. But yeah, I think these are two different things. The flying out of the Ithaca airport is financially out of reach for many and is up to and including many of our own county staff on work trips. I'll leave it there.
Shauna.
I was going to say exactly what Greg was going to say. As far as the people that are flying out, it being a tax burden to our taxpayers to keep the customs facility open, 26 flights. I mean, we're hiring a full-time TSA person to sit there and wait for 26 flights for the year. I mean, that's absolutely a waste of resources. And then the fact that only 5% of Tompkins County people are able to fly out of the airport. I mean, it is cost prohibitive, and I think if we're honest with each other, you know, we can note that. And then, you know, at one point there was the comment that no local tax money has been used. However, even whenever I started on this legislature 7 years ago, we were talking about how we used to waive fees in order for our airport to have a balanced budget. So, you know, at one point I realized that the airport was making money, like right before COVID. But there have been times when we've had to waive fees in order for it to sustain itself.
Mike Sigler.
I just wanted to assure people, I don't want this to be confused. I don't want people to think that this vote to maybe, you know, to close the customs facility is somehow a vote of no confidence in the airport. I had high hopes for the customs facility. I mean, I had hoped maybe we would become the customs facility also for Elmira and Binghamton, whereas you could do a touch here and then you could go on to those two airports. I also had high hopes that the federal government might come in and pay for that customs person, just as I'm told, it's my understanding that they do in Syracuse and Buffalo. That simply hasn't happened. And I think we should look at this maybe instead of as a closure, as more of a refocus on some of the core things that we are told need to get done there. We need lower prices for flights. That's a consistent theme. We need better routes. You know, it was frankly terrific when we were flying into Charlotte. That was like a big gain for us. And then frankly, we need more routes. I mean, that flight to DC, it's my understanding, was crowded. We do have challenges. I mean, we're moving from 50 passenger jets to 70 passenger jets. We are not on an interstate like Elmira or Binghamton. We are essentially isolated. And without this airport, we are disconnected from the rest of the world. And we have one of the top 15 universities in the world right here. And while people may think, well, that's Cornell's issue is our issue. It's, you know, $1 billion payroll. I don't think there's anybody who works within this community that isn't touched by the university in some way, shape, or form. So, again, I don't want people to think that this is some kind of vote of no confidence. I think this is just really a vote to maybe refocus on some of our more urgent priorities for the airport.
Deborah.
Yeah, I agree. This is not in any way a reflection on the airport itself or our airport's management. This customs facility never really got off the ground, sorry. And I think that that's the difference between how we dealt with recycling and materials management and how we're dealing with this customs facility. Recycling and materials management was a robust program of longstanding that ran into a snag, and we got it through the snag. This is a program that we had hopes for, but it never really did. I won't repeat the get off the ground thing. It never really took off, God. But anyway.
Never soared.
So yeah, exactly. The sky's the limit. I think we've given it like 4 years. And I know the pandemic was a challenge, but other things are recovering from the pandemic, and this just never really has. So I don't think Roxanne's upset with us asking her to look for a way to turn this into something that will add revenue to the airport's coffers rather than cost us money. Thanks. Sorry for the puns.
Lee, did you have your hand up?
We were asked at Facilities and Infrastructure, and Roxanne, can you remind me the ability for us to reopen or revisit it, should that be a desire in the future years?
So it would have to be another application to Customs to open the facility again or create the facility again. We would also need to, so if they change the outlay of the building from like, so they determine the size of the building, what goes in the building and how it looks. So if that changes between now and say if we ever decided to reapply, we would have to make those changes as well or update the facility or change the facility.
Thank you. Nothing precludes us from going back if we feel that there's a demand for it in future years.
Correct. We would just have to reapply.
Okay, I still have a couple of people on the list. Maybe we can wrap this up soon. Greg?
Yeah, I want to point out, and I hope people will, one of the keys to getting lower prices in Ithaca is to get more people to fly out of Ithaca. So if you can, please do. If you can't, calculate what it costs you to travel to another airport, add up all of the parking and overnight and the gas and the wear and tear on your vehicle or whatever mode of transportation you use, and look at the total cost of traveling. I think that's really important for people to remember. I think it's also important for us around this table to remember how the airport funding model works and what drives prices, right? And if we have more people flying out of Ithaca, we can attract more flights, we can attract better routes, we have more leverage in negotiation with the airlines. I also think it's important to point out, Binghamton Airport on their website only has one airline flying in and out of there. Elmira only has 2 airlines flying in and out of there. We also have 2. I know we're working on getting another airline potentially back with additional routes. So at that point, we potentially could be the regional airport with more airlines flying in and out of that airport than any of the other small regional airports in the area. So there's a lot that's going into this. So as bad and dismal as it may seem to some, it's getting better. Right, and the numbers that have been reported, time after time, quarter after quarter on travel and seats being filled is going up. So while it's an unfortunate thing for the customs facility, I think it's important to remember that our airport is still working, is still operating, has a number of different services, and it's really important for people to really weigh not just ticket price for ticket price, but total cost of travel when choosing an airport, because we do have great flights, and I think we also have the potential and things in the works that will potentially bring better options and different routes and open up a world of possibilities to our travelers. So we need people to continue to support the airport so that the airport can continue to support the community.
Hey, Veronica, wrap us up.
Well, I agree with Greg's point about comparing not just ticket price to ticket price, but travel price to travel price. That is true. I just wanted to say, since I made some of the most critical comments earlier, that I also am not taking this as a referendum on our airport, and certainly not on our airport staff. I don't know that we could have better airport leadership now. Just the challenge of making the airport make sense in this place and in this time is a big tangled one that I don't know all the complications of and how things relate to the FAA and such. So, yeah, it's nothing about a lack of confidence in the staff. I wouldn't choose anyone else.
Wrapping up Veronica is Ann.
So if you do fly, please consider a carbon offset. And you can look online. There's lots of ways you can do that to the carbon offset for your flight. Only about 2% of people do this. I've done it before. It's pretty easy. You can do it, spend your money locally for the carbon offset. One of the ways is through Finger Lakes Climate Fund, and then your donations are used to fund energy efficient projects and renewables right here in Tompkins County. Thank you. And, well, I guess they also go to whole Finger Lakes, but mostly in Tompkins County.
Let's have a vote on Resolution I.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
No.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Ziegler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 13-1, the motion carries. Okay, Roxanne, thank you for joining us. So I realize that's where we were on the agenda anyway. So Lee, you want to keep going?
Why don't I bring forward Resolution J, appropriation from the contingent fund, Highway Department, Highway Air Conditioning Equipment ID number 12673. So moved.
Mike Lane seconds.
And what this is funding that will allow the Highway Department to secure equipment for their fleet management, fleet repair operations, to actually work on air conditioning units in vehicles. Right now that's outsourced, and they feel that with this equipment they can manage things more economically in-house.
Very good. Discussion, Resolution J. Let's have a vote then.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Ziegler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries. Lee, anything else from your committee?
No, we're kind of in reverse here tonight, but the committee did meet on the 19th of September, and we'll be meeting again on the 17th of October. We were briefed by Arel on issues related to the climate and sustainability and the green facilities plan and some options moving ahead, and I think we will have more discussion about that as the budget rolls out. There's certainly interest in that, and Arel is working on some alternative scenarios and options to things that were part of the delay. And I just make two other mentions. Frank Doldo was with us as Chief Transportation Officer, and if you want to refer to the minutes of the Public Works Committee, you'll see where there's about facilities and infrastructure. You'll see where there's about $1.3 million in RFPs that will be going out in the next few weeks related to the mobility management plan and other services that are part of that. And finally, Greg, you almost stole my thunder. One thing that Roxanne did bring to our attention is that emplanements are up 23% this year over last year, and the loading is 80 to 90% in the months of April, May, and June. So yes, to those points that you're starting to see some things rebound there. Things are on their way up, Deborah.
23% increase in employments so far this year, is that what you said?
Yep.
Correct.
Wow.
Good to hear things are taking off.
Any questions or comments for Lee? Okay, thank you, Lee. Next up, Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Government Operations is going to meet on Thursday at 10 o'clock. We have a pretty straightforward agenda, not hopefully too long. And then I have 4 resolutions setting public hearings, and I can do those.
Please.
Okay, Resolution K, authorizing a public hearing on proposed local law number C of 2024, local law amending the authorized exemption from taxes pursuant to sections 459-C and 467 of the New York State Real Property Tax Law for certain older and disabled residents, ID 12605. And I'll move that.
Is there a second? Susan seconds. And just before we go further, I just want to say for anyone listening, watching, these next 4, this resolution and the next 3 are just setting the public hearings. We're not actually voting on the issue itself. Discussion on Resolution K. Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries. Resolution L.
Okay,
Yep.
the next one is L, authorizing a public hearing on proposed local law number D of 2024, a local law amending the authorized exemption from taxes pursuant to section 458-A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law for certain veterans, ID 12707.
Is there a second? Randy seconds. Discussion. Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries.
Okay, Resolution M, authorizing a public hearing on proposed local law number E of 2024, a local law adopting the authorized exemption from taxes pursuant to sections 485-B of the New York State Real Property Tax Law, ID 12708.
Is there a second? Susan seconds. Greg?
I'd like to abstain or ask to abstain or recuse myself from this. I don't believe, and I think, Maury, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a direct conflict, but I don't want there to be a perceived perception of any sort of conflict because I do operate a small business that could potentially benefit from this if we chose to apply.
That's a reasonable basis to abstain. I think we reached that conclusion in committee as well.
Yep.
Rich?
I would abstain for the same reason.
Same.
Very good. Okay, any discussion about Resolution M? Let's have a vote then.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Dawson?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Here, yes, I'm sorry.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
It'll throw you off.
Motion carries 12 yeses, 2 abstentions.
All right, and then last one, I think, for me, Resolution N, authorizing a public hearing on proposed local law number F of 2024, a local law adopting the tax exemption allowed pursuant to Real Property Tax Law 421-P, ID 12709.
Is there a second? Susan seconds. Discussion? Let's have a vote on Resolution N, please.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Ziegler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14 ayes, motion carries. Anything else from the Government Operations Committee?
Nope, thank you.
Questions or comments for Amanda? All right, thank you. Next up, Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair.
Thank you. We have not met since the last legislature meeting. We are meeting again on Tuesday, October 15th at 11 a.m., and that's a different day of the week and a different time due to the county being closed and celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day and Columbus Day. So again, that's Tuesday, October 15th at 11. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ann?
And don't forget to offset any air travel. You can do it for car travel also.
Okay, next up is the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. So we already spent some time talking about the Crisis Stabilization Center and that $1.5 million grant that we're making to them. So it seems everyone that's involved in the project is saying that this is going to happen in the time frame that we laid out and that's mandated by ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. The other project that we had been putting a deadline on and watching does not seem like it will be able to be accomplished in the time frame that we established and the ARPA guidelines established, and that is the Cuba International Project. That project was for $74,086, and so that money will be reallocated to an internal project from the county. Questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Oh, and we do not have another meeting scheduled at this time. Ann?
Dan,
Yes.
I'm not sure if you mentioned how much the Cuba project was, just
$74,086.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next up, Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Our next regular meeting of the Budget Committee is going to be on October 10th. But our expanded Budget Committee process is continuing, and we will meet again as an EBC on October 3rd, this Thursday at 4:30, and we will begin our deliberation about changes to the recommended budget of the county administrator if we choose to make any. And I think we're probably going to do that because there's been a lot of activity out there about the possibility of amendments to that budget coming forth. And it's been a work in progress, and I know that staff at county administration, Norma and Corey particularly, have been working very hard to try to get all the different amendments out there, and we'll be talking about how to proceed on Thursday with those amendments. Some people want the cuts first, which is probably a good idea, and some people want the ones that have a lot of support listed early on. That probably makes another good idea. We will first on Thursday, I think we talked about, and we are going to have a discussion at the request of the legislature on fund balance. And if we haven't talked about that enough, I hope that we're sick to death of it by the time we talk about it on the 3rd. I don't think I have anything else, Dan.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mike? Randy?
I don't think I'll tire of discussing the fund balance at all, Mike. So I've been doing analysis and looking at the budget book online, which a lot of effort was put into putting all the numbers in that new system that they have, which is OpenGov, I believe it's called, and really incredible data in there, and a lot of work put in to put the right numbers in, because garbage in, garbage out. So I did an analysis. I've struggled with the funding of this and where we sit with money. and the fund balance and how it moves. And there's a lot of moving parts, and actually Laura and I met, and one of the unknowns is, the grants that you may or may not receive, or what billings have been done or not been done, and the communication of how that even gets to finance. And it may get there late in the game as far as whether you are going to get the grant you budgeted for or you're not. So there are a lot of things that are confusing there. But I did an analysis of the payroll for the last 3 years, 22 and 23, and based on, these are actual numbers right from this budget book. In 2022, we underspent on our payroll and fringe budget by $4,296,000. So that went into the general fund or some other fund. And in 2023, we underspent our payroll and fringe budget by $6,259,000. And that's all been realized, and it's in, if you look at the, and there's, I'm just looking at payroll because look at all of the departments, which I did. I went through every one for 3 years to understand how the money was moving. And there are some things that change from payroll, but payroll is really your driving force of expense and change. So then I looked at 2024. And our budget for 2024 is $61,435,463. I provided this spreadsheet to all the legislators, by the way. They all have this, and to administration. And through, just in the payroll budget, through September, we've spent $30,271,152. And that leaves $23 million and change unspent so far that would have to be spent for the remaining 3 months of this year. And the same goes the same. We're underspending on fringe, which would make sense. So I looked at this data, and I wanted to know how much money are we spending per month on our payroll as far as budget. And our budget was $5,119,000 and change per month, average. And to date, over the 9 months that we've been working on this in our budget, and a lot of this is because it's tough to hire employees, and there's reasons for that. We've spent an average of $4,252,000. That means for the first 9 months of the year, a monthly average, we've spent $867,000 per month less than we budgeted. And a similar analysis goes along with your fringes. So far this year, we've underspent our budget in personnel and fringe by $9,212,000. So my numbers may not be 100% correct. But I've reviewed this, I've made my numbers again. I didn't believe the data once I put it in the spreadsheet. I couldn't believe it was that much money, frankly. So what I did is, and I anticipated that if we had full employment for the last 3 months of the year, which that's not going to happen, we would still, that would still add more money to our fund balance. So I realize there's a lot of reasons to look at all the things that we fund and we scrutinize them. I think they should be scrutinized more. I've done that for the committees I'm on, and for the entities that I represent the legislature on. And I'm all for a scrutinizing thing, but my issue is that the gloom and doom of how bad things are not that bad when we underspent just on payroll over $9 million this year. So I'm hoping that is part of our discussion on fund balance.
Deborah.
Yeah, I appreciate your energy, Randy. And unfortunately, you don't yet have your superpower. So I do have some questions about this. I mean, first of all, I don't think that your calculation of what our monthly payroll costs are going to be for the remaining quarter of the year takes into account the fact that the new collective bargaining agreement payment schedules didn't go into effect until what, September or October? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, and Lori can probably explain this far better than I can, but I don't think calculating what actual fringes are is that easy. I think it lags behind. It lags behind the year or what. I'll leave it to her. But so those would be a couple of questions that I have. You know, we're probably not in as bad a shape as it might look like, but I don't think we're $9 million to the good. That's just my initial impression.
Any other questions or comments for Mike Lane, Budget Committee? Veronica.
Sorry. Well, since you phrased it that way, I need to somehow address this to Mike.
Yes, because there's a fund balance discussion
Okay.
tomorrow scheduled for Thursday.
Okay. Okay, well then question for Mike is in the context of what Randy shared, I have also become convinced that we have, in general, we underspend our budget each year, which is certainly we want to do that and not the opposite. But I think, at least for the last handful of years, it seemed we've taken money out of fund balance, sometimes to pay ongoing expenses, which is we're not supposed to do. And yet, it always comes back. Maybe not exactly the amount, but the amount comes back into fund balance from ongoing expenses that we budgeted for, but then didn't actually expend. And so if I knew how to submit a budget amendment to account for that so that there was more money available for target in terms of the accounting, I would. I don't, so I haven't. Do you know? Whether you agree with it or not, what would one do?
I don't know exactly how you would do something in general like that. I would refer you to our administration staff, and I'm sure that if there's a way, they would help you craft a proposed amendment.
But your graft of verb tense is impressive.
Mm-hmm. I am a high school teacher.
Shauna.
Randy, if you vote for my OTR to add someone in accounting, you might be able to apply for the job.
Done it.
I keep telling Norma that we just replace her with Randy and save quite a lot of money.
He wouldn't work for free.
Anything else on this committee report? Okay, thank you, Mike. Next up is Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee met this past Wednesday, September 25th, I think. And a couple things, and I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to go on a little longer than usual, but it's not usually that long. One thing that happened was our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene Holmes, presented the methodology and framework for institutionalizing equity within the county. This is something she'd already presented to department heads and is going to present at GO on Thursday. So tune in if you want the details. It's basically a big step on the way to forming the Equity Action Plan that is one of our strategic plan objectives. The action plan itself, which is, a plan for action and specific things to do, is being constructed in collaboration with department heads. Wouldn't work otherwise. So this is the methodology and framework. It's kind of like instructions for that. But really, you should hear it all from Charlene's mouth directly. I would submit in this context that the legislature itself is a department, and yet we are not, by default, participating in the Equity Action Plan ourselves. I mean, we don't have a head. We are a head. We're like the Hydra or something with 14 heads that'll be 16 soon. And so I don't know how it would look for the legislature collectively to determine how we participate in institutionalizing equity. It's not going to be the same as a department doing whatever they do and a department head setting goals, but I think that we should do something, give this some thought, in light of Charlene's upcoming presentation at the GO committee, because we are the leaders here, and like tone-setting organizational leadership has to come from us in a lot of ways for it to really embed within the organization. The other big thing that we talked about at WDIC is what the role and scope of this committee should even be, because it's been in its current form since it was created back in 2005, when it was kind of the only DEI thing structurally present in the county. And then thanks to the work that previous iterations of the committee did in lots of ways, and other, work by others, there's a lot of other things going on now. We have a chief equity and diversity officer, we have county values, we have Team Jedi, and the diversity consortium, yeah. And so WDIC doesn't necessarily need to look the way it does anymore. So we did not come up with a bigger, a proposal for what it should be. But what we're gonna do at our October meeting, we are gonna be reviewing the proposed edits to the county's diversity and inclusion policy. It was last updated 5 years ago, so it's been being reviewed now. Team Jedi, comprised of staff, was working on it and almost done editing. So we'll look at that at our committee meeting, and then in light of that, begin to think about what WDIC should be or morph into. I do want to read a brief bit of the current WDIC bylaws, more recently updated. Say, the purpose of the committee, the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, shall be to serve in an advisory capacity to the Tompkins County Legislature, a few other people, and department heads on issues relating to diversity and inclusion in employment and service within the Tompkins County workforce, to encourage equality of treatment and employment and customer service, and to assist the Tompkins County Legislature in fulfilling the goals of the Tompkins Diversity and Inclusion Policy as adopted by blah, 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 and the Tompkins County Strategic Plan. So WDIC is supposed to be serving, advising us, the legislature, and assisting us, the legislature, in fulfilling the goals of the diversity and inclusion policy and the strategic plan. And a big piece that seemed to me missing, hearing from the other committee members, is a lot of them saying, we don't really know what the legislature wants. I know, which can be hard, because again, 14 of us. But I think those conversations, what support do we, the legislature, need in fulfilling these goals that we have set for ourselves? That's something that I would like to talk more about. And I guess in parallel with that, leading up to that all the time, the final main important thing that came up was the need for stronger and more just personal relationships between us legislators and our staff. We had it's not even a WDIC member, I think someone who's been with the county for a few decades, was telling a story of, I remember back when time was, people, regardless of position, would just hang out sometimes and do social stuff together. I cannot remember precisely what they cited. And I don't think you can mandate socializing, of course. And I also see the value in having the individual to individual relationships that probably take some work to build when it's with, especially when it's between like a legislator and a non-department heads, because we at least in the meetings get to see the department heads on a regular basis. So a lot to think about, more to come. Thanks for listening.
Questions or comments for Veronica? Ann?
Just to clarify, part of what I remember was that employee said there was more interaction. And so I think back to the employee picnic, for instance. I mean, it's just a little thing, but I think the planning department were sincere when they said they thought it was a big deal that I went and was a cheerleader for their team when they were playing cornhole. And, you know, so we just got to hang out and, you know, shared some food and different things and helped do something fun together. So I think I'd be interested to deep dive into that more. What does that mean to employees? What used to happen? Whether it's, you know, I really don't know. I mean, I could conjecture, but I'd like to find out how the legislature used to interact more with the county staff and what they would like now.
Anything else? Mike Lane.
Just wanted to say to Veronica, I think it's very commendable that you and the WDIC are looking at your structure and how you should move forward. It's always been a little different because it has both legislators and non-legislators on it, although it reports every regular legislature meeting. And I'd like to hear more about the ideas that they have.
Anything else for Veronica? Okay, thank you. Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. And with the Chair's indulgence, I had a question regarding the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, if we could go backwards for a moment.
Sure.
I was struck when you gave your report that those are the last two projects, and your committee was actually very successful in running a process that was non-standard, that had to create criteria to distribute this money in the community, and it's out there working right now. I was wondering, is the committee going to do any kind of status report on all these projects? I think it would be really beneficial for the community to hear all the good things that are coming out of this.
Dominic Recchio, Communications Director.
Thanks, Dan. In 2023, we did an annual report, the first of what I anticipate to be 3 or 4. That annual report consisted of both a video featuring some of the bigger projects that were getting off the ground and a document that was distributed to legislators and online. I'm working on this year's annual report now. It will similarly have an overview of all of the program areas, and it will highlight several specific programs that are coming to fruition.
Right, exactly. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Public Safety Committee. The two resolutions I had were addressed. I do have a brief report. The committee met last Tuesday, September 24th. We had a presentation from Bike Walk Tompkins on bicycle theft in the community, and some, I thought, very practical and achievable proposals on what we could be doing, and frankly, we could be doing in conjunction with the city to really make a difference here. If we're serious about alternative methods of transportation and believe in bicycles as part of that solution, we should really be thinking about what we can do to reduce bike theft. And Bike Walk Tompkins had some very good ideas, and we heard about those. The other thing I'd mention is we had a report from assigned counsel. We'd asked the assigned counsel department to look at the possibility of a public defender model as opposed to assigned counsel, and what would that do given the pretty significant changes New York State has mandated for payments for assigned counsel. It made sense to look at that. And just to report out, it still looks like it's more expensive to do a public defender model, principally because even if you set it up, you also need an assigned counsel system for conflicts. So at any rate, we had a good discussion about that. The other thing I'd report is our jail numbers. We're currently at 69 in the jail with 4 board outs and 1 board in. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting again October 22nd, Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Rich. You've already done your resolution. Are there any questions or comments for Rich? Veronica.
I guess I just want to append a couple things about the bike presentation. One of the recommendations they had was to publicize, to request everyone register their bikes on Bike Index. You can go to bikeindex.org, and then information about your bike will be there. In the unfortunate event that it does go missing, it'll be easier for it to be recovered. Also, the director gave a couple examples of bike racks that vary in quality and showed an example of an especially bad one, which is difficult to park a bike at and not so safe, and then an especially good one that has, I don't know, a whole list of features. And the good one was the bike rack outside the Tompkins County Courthouse, which I'm not sure exactly whose that is, but it is the same structure as the bike rack outside this building that we're in. So I felt like we got a gold star.
I think the former county tourism planning person designed those and did that, initiated that project. Sorry, any other questions or comments for Rich? So we're at 7:30, but we're pretty close to the end of the agenda. Shall we push through?
Please.
Through, all right. Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Randy Brown, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Dan. We're not going to have a meeting in October. The next meeting we planned for November, and we should know much more about the company being selected to help us manage the construction of the Center of Government building then.
Questions or comments for Randy? Great, thank you. Health and Human Services Committee, Shauna Black, Chair.
Thank you very much. Our meeting was a few weeks ago, and I actually have COVID, and so Travis was the chair of that meeting. We invited in the recipients of our opioid task force grant awards, and they presented on their projects. Many of them have not started, and so they have till the end of next year to get their projects underway and to deliver those to the community. It was definitely good to hear more about the projects, because initially, whenever we made our decision, we were just given, pieces of paper, and so it was really nice to actually see faces to the projects. And we did pass a few resolutions. Most of those were in consent. I do have one additional resolution that was pulled. There was an amendment made to the resolution, and the changes were not reflected in your packet. So the revised resolution is in your red folder, and that was just the addition. Randy is our liaison to the Youth Services Board. That's a non-voting member that we added to the changes. So if I can move approval of amended bylaws, Tompkins County Youth Services Board, ID 12696.
Seconded by Travis. Any discussion? Okay, let's have a vote.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries. Sean, anything else from the Health and Human Services Committee?
No, our next meeting is October 16th at 1 p.m.
Questions or comments for Shauna? Thank you. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Our next meeting is tomorrow, October 2nd at 3 p.m. here in Chambers. We do have a late addition to the agenda, so I would ask committee members to check your email, as there's a request to have a resolution considered that relates to our managing of Code Blue and our homeless response and staffing needs, et cetera. So that should be in your inbox and will be added as a late addition to the agenda. We'll also have an update on our Code Blue response, along with, under Arts, Culture, and Tourism, the award resolutions for the Community Celebrations Grant, Tourism Advancement Grant, and Tourism Capital Grant Program, along with the Convention and Visitors Bureau mid-year report. Additionally, I would like to congratulate Jennifer Tavares for her over a decade of service to the Tompkins Chamber. And she has taken a new role starting middle of October with Cornell University as the Director of Community Relations. So look forward to continuing to work with her in a new role as somebody who really understands the importance of, I think, town-gown relationships. But also congratulate Peggy Coleman, who is currently the Vice President of the Chamber and Director of the CVB, who's the interim President of the Tompkins County Chamber until a search is completed. So just congratulating both of those as sort of a economic development change within our community. But other than that, I have nothing additional to report to the committee, but I do have a member-filed resolution when we're ready.
Questions or comments for the Housing and Economic Development Committee? Okay, we are up to individual member-filed resolutions. Resolution P. Greg?
Thanks, Dan. If I could move Resolution P, amending Resolution number 2024-199, creation of new positions, shelter worker and senior shelter worker, Department of Social Services, ID number 12769.
Do I have a second?
In our effort to change the wheels while the bus is in motion, we missed something in the last email, which was, or sorry, in the last email. In the last resolution that we passed on this topic, which we did not include the number of positions. Is that correct, Lisa?
That's correct.
We did not include the number of positions which is required to be listed there. So I think that's, yeah, you can see it in the resolved. 6 full-time positions, 8 full-time positions, and 12 per diem positions, lines 23 through 26.
Discussion on Resolution P. Randy?
Yes, is it the hope that the money from Code Blue would pay for this expense?
That certainly is the hope.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote, please.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shurtleff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries. Thank you. We are up to the minutes of the previous meeting. If there's no objection, I'd like to have them move together. Greg Mezzi moves, Rich seconds. Any discussion on the minutes?
Amanda.
Vote, please.
Amanda.
Yes, Amanda.
Yeah, I already let the clerks know, but it was significant enough that I wanted to just say on packet page 52, my vote was recorded incorrectly, and they have it fixed, but it was kind of important vote.
Great, so noted, thank you. Any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, let's have a vote then.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shurtleff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes. 14-0, the minutes are approved. I would like to move into executive session. We have 2 items. They are both for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. There's somebody that would move to go into executive session. Veronica moves, Deborah seconds. Any discussion on going to executive session? Let's have a vote, please.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Ann Corman, Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Yes. 14-0, the motion carries. We do not expect to take any action when we come out of executive session. We're going to take a short recess to close down the cameras, and then we will come back and go into executive session.
Let's go play kick.